Hey, this is Nick from Remedy667.com coming to you from a very, very dark room on a very beautiful Horror Font Friday. We got all sorts of crazy fonts. Go check them out, Remedy667.com. Anyway, today's word, as you can see, last week's Black Scorpion is up here. Today we've got the Grim Reaper. And this is kind of a fun one because it's all disconnected and there's all sorts of little pieces that kind of attach and don't. So we're going to go through the same way we always would and pull out our individual letters that will be of use to us. You can see we've got an A, but it's in two pieces. Group that. Fonts like this are kind of fun because, well, there's pluses and bads. They can be kind of fun because it can be really easy to build shapes from the letters. And they can be a little tricky because these angles are all different, which is going to pose a lot of problems when we are trying to make the typographic system make sense. I'm going to group those. I'm actually going to delete that dot over there. This P is good. And we've got another E and another R. Group that. All right, so I've got all my letters grouped as letters. Let's get to work. So we got a couple R's. I'm going to use this one. And we have A, T, G, P. There's no O, which is usually a letter that we kind of like to start with. It's kind of nice to have an M. You don't typically get an M sometimes. There's no S, but it's going to be a pretty loosey-goosey S anyway. Lots of E's, lots of R's. Oh, we forgot to group that one. All right, let's get these all on a central kind of alignment and let's get started. This is kind of an interesting thing. I think one thing I might do with font like this, and this is pretty interesting. I don't think I've ever done this before on this channel, but I'm going to take this E and I'm just going to cut it right here because this jagged shape is a little intense. So I'm going to take it and ungroup it, and I might take one of these dots here and put it there because I felt like it. And I'm going to group this and I'm going to make a brush out of it. I want it to be an art brush, I think. And I think I actually want it to go in the reverse direction so that the dot will be where I end, because in my mind that's kind of how that would work. I don't want to scale it proportionately, but I do want to stretch to fit the stroke. Now those will come into play in a moment. So now we're talking about a B, right? So let's move this E down here and we're just going to draw the line and then we're going to apply that stroke. See that? Like magic. It almost works. It's a little, I think I'm going to get rid of that one. I kind of only want like 3 points. Put it in there. That's the top of the B. And assign that one as well. And this is going to get cut right there. And actually it's going to come out a little just to get that more on par. And there we have a pretty good looking B that, I mean, maybe good looking is a little much, but we have a B that looks like it is part of this set, right? So that's how we're going to work with this one. Light. Is that better? Yeah, a little bit. All right. So we did our B. We've got an E. We are, if we get an F in here, and I can make an F with literally, so that's one of our brushes. We'll actually make a couple. I'll do another cut right here. And group that, group that. I want to rotate those because I want them to be kind of art brush. This one I want going that way. This one I want going the other way. This way. Okay. So these are my new brushes. So I can go back to my B and say, you know what? That one right there looks a little weird. Let's use a different brush and change it up. And once you understand, so this is what you would call, or this is what I would call a skeleton font, because you're essentially using a brush over top of a letter's skeleton. And if you go online, there are tons of fonts that are made like this. Like, it's like somebody just makes a skeleton and then just puts different strokes on it and churns out tons and tons of fonts that, in my opinion, are usually not all that great. But who am I to judge? I'll make display fonts, you know. Normally I would bring down the crossbar in the F to fix some of that negative space, but with this one, because we're just doing a little different, I'm actually going to cut up from the bottom and just cut a little bit out of that. Uh-oh. Somebody's delivering the mail or something. We got a G, H, I, no J's, no K's, no L's. Should I make that an L? Seems so small. So trim that one there. I'm going to rotate this one just to get this L to be a little bit bigger, and trim that part of it. So there's our L. This is obviously our M. I'm going to take our M and I'm just going to cut it right up the middle here. I'm going to round that side off and get this side going like that. And rotate this side. Or actually, you know what? Don't rotate it. That's going to be there. And then we're just going to use some crookedy looking one of our brushes to finish out our N. Going to group that. and make it a little bit smaller and maybe a little less. Remember how I said it's going to be kind of a pain in the butt with the number system? That's what I'm talking about. All right. With O's, sometimes when you're making skeleton brushes, making skeleton fonts, it makes sense to kind of draw an O like that, because these brushes you get are kind of gnarly. They do weird things. Like they'll get big on the sides. I'm going to delete that one. I think that's the winner. All right, this, my Q, I'm going to want it a little bit taller, kind of like, if you think the difference between like an O and a 0, zeros are always kind of a little more condensed than an O, theoretically, unless, you know, you're working with that Remedy 667 font, and then they might be the same width. All right, so this is my Q. Gonna pull that side down a little bit. Group that, hit R to give it a little bit of rotation there. And I am actually gonna use, I think this R's crossbar, because the other ones are just too big. So, whoops, zoom back in, cross that, delete that. Do I need to delete anything else? That up there maybe. But I think what I'm gonna do is get this kind of high, going through right there, and that got rid of that second hollow area, which made it look obviously like a components were a little too repeating. So that just gives a little bit more variation. With the R, I was thinking of just going with this R because it's big and bold and cool. For my all right, I got an idea. Might be dangerous. Let's go back to the C, which you usually make from the G, if there's one or either of those. So, but I'm going to cut it right there, and I'm going to use my brush. Whoops, because that was selected, it made a boo-boo. I'm going to use that one. Delete, delete, delete. Group that. My D, I'm going to make from this E. Same thing, just with the that was like already an F. I probably should have kept that, but ooh, that's funky. There. I don't know, that one feels like it might fit the best with the other letters. We're gonna make it small too. It's looking pretty funky. I don't know what weird noise I was just making. Or else I had to come back in with it. We're gonna make the U from this R. Feel me? Right here. Actually, you know what? Check this out. Hey, water boy. Check this out. The one thing that always gets me with these is like the length of my stroke is like always off. Group that. Look at how unruly that looks. All right, so to make my V, I'm gonna make that from the M, and then I'm gonna make the W from the N, which all seems completely backwards. But trust me, it'll work for variations case. There's our V. Here's our W. X is going to be ridiculously easy with a brush. It's not a good looking X. There we go. That's a pretty good looking X. Pretty wild looking X, that's for sure. All right, let's take a look back. I got to build a J and a K. My J is just going to be cut right there. And you know what? I think I'm going to put a crossbar on this J, like it were a lowercase t or something. And my K, I got all these R's, which are perfect for Ks. I'm gonna do that, gonna rotate that, and group it. And that's our K. Actually, let's bring it in, just connect it. I mean, I think that'll help with legibility down the road. Got to make a S, a Y, and a Z. For those of you keeping track at home, thank you. How do I want to make this? Let's make the Z from the E and the R, and then we'll make the Y out of those as well. So first, this is an old trick. Old tricks for new dogs. All right. So first the Y. Cutting that there, that there. Deleting that, rounding this side off a little bit. Rotates that. And I like the way it flies up like it's the friggin' MTV logo from the 80s. Why? Because we like you. Delete that. This is supposed to be a Z. All right. I can handle that. I'm gonna leave that just how it is. This I'm gonna reflect and just round off. Whoops. Yeah, I said yeah. No, I didn't say yeah. Just kind of carry on that and tilt it a little bit. I'm going to tuck that right where those are already crossing the streams. Should probably rotate that. Ugh, that looks terribly worse. Let's do this. Probably that one, would you say? Ooh, that looks wild. This is one of those sometimes where I flip it upside down to see if it looks better. That one actually did look better upside down. All right, what did I forget? What did I forget? The S, the pain in the S. I'm gonna make that with the Q, I think. I'm gonna group that and I'm gonna object expand appearance because I want those lines, or I want those forms, for lack of a better word, that I drew earlier to like kind of function nicely in there. This one's gonna need trim down. And this one I'm just gonna rotate over like that because I really like the way that that ends. And there's our S. That's not a pain in the S at all, huh? Actually goes pretty easy. And I'm gonna make it pretty high up just because that R is unruly. And there you go. That's how you have it. Sorry that took so long. Grim Reaper. There's your alphabet. Let me know if I missed anything. I like that the LMN just looks like a bunch of zigzags. That's pretty fun. That R is totally unruly. Stu. VWX. And there you go. That's your alphabet of the week. Come by remedy667.com and maybe we'll come up with some way to start releasing some of these pretty soon. And if not in the next week, which it probably won't be, come on back and see us next week. Have a good week. You're great.